First and foremost, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Alan, and to the Canyon Country Advisory Committee for putting this together. Appreciate the opportunity to spend a few moments with you. Give you briefly 5 things that pretty much cover who I am, and then I'll cover just a little bit. Number 1, I'm a lifelong resident of Los Angeles County, fourth generation Japanese American, been in Los Angeles my whole life. Number 2, I spent 33 years in law enforcement. I started out as a city cop, became a deputy sheriff in 1982, and retired 33 years later, ultimately, as the undersheriff of Los Angeles County. Number 3, I'm a certified public accountant in the state of California. I practiced simultaneously while I was doing law enforcement. I went to school at Loyola Marymount University, where I got my degree, and just picked up this background in accounting. Number 4, I'm in my 10th year as the mayor of the city of Gardena, where I'm currently still the mayor. I'm in my 16th year in office down there. It's a city that I grew up in, and the reason I got involved is it was a city that was going through some very difficult times, and I'll tell you a brief little story about where we are today. And finally, because this is something I always forget, there's a clear difference between myself and my opponent, and that is that I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. And I will tell you this. I'm not looking to arm everybody as a sheriff in Los Angeles County with a gun, but certainly those law-abiding citizens who pass all the state-mandated tests and the training and desire to carry a gun for the protection of themselves and their families, I believe that they should have a choice to do so, and that is something that I fully intend to do. So go back to the law enforcement. My big passion is my firm belief that everybody in this country, wherever they live, whether it's in a rich neighborhood, a gated community, or whether they live in a rough part of town, they have a right to be able to go home to their own neighborhood and feel very safe and secure in their own home. Everybody has that right in this country, and it's the job of law enforcement to provide you with that environment. I take great pride in the fact that everywhere I've worked, crime prevention, crime reduction, and crime fighting has been at the forefront of what I do. When I was in charge of crime fighting for the entire county, I was the assistant sheriff from 2007 to 2011, and that was in charge of our 23 sheriff stations and our investigations and our homeland security. The first place that I went to was I got in a helicopter, and I wanted to see how vast this county was and what was our true responsibility. I'm sure that some of you, if you've looked at the map, if you've ever been in a helicopter, you will know what I'm talking about. Santa Clarita Valley is at the center of the universe. It is at the center of Los Angeles County. And as Santa Clarita goes, that's how the county's going to go. And if you recall, for a while there, in the early 2000s, late 90s, crime in the Antelope Valley was out of control. And it had reached a point where the violent crime was moving northward from Los Angeles into the Antelope Valley, and it was becoming a very, very big challenge. And then what happened when we started the war on crime and the war on gangs, and I made a public declaration of declaring war on gangs because it needed to be done. And if you look at the crime statistics in 03, 04, 05, gang crimes, gang murders, gang violence was really at a crescendo. So we started pushing hard, and guess where they started to go? People started to feel the impact here. So I made it a point to come up here. This is about the 15th time that I've been up here in the last 6 months, because I feel that this is when you look at the development that's taking place in Santa Clarita Valley, and what's going to happen now that the economy is recovering, and you see the tens and thousands of people that they're going to be adding here with the small arteries. We've got to have a plan in the Sheriff's Department to address how we're going to keep this community safe. I remember telling the captains, the 3 captains that were in charge of this station area when I was the assistant sheriff, I remember Santa Clarita being designated as one of the safest cities in America, and that is really an honor to get that designation. And I said, as long as I'm the assistant sheriff working in the Sheriff's Department, and as long as you're the captain, we are not going to allow this community to lose that designation on our watch. And so I get criticized because I am tough on crime. It's not the LA County way, but I don't like graffiti. I believe that juvenile delinquents need to be locked up and given an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves, but in the proper environment. I don't believe that they should be allowed to run amok and terrorize good people, law-abiding citizens. And if you don't address those little things, if you don't take care of the graffiti that you see popping up, then they lead to bigger things. And so I'll tell you that leads into where I am in Gardena. I ran for that office because it was a town that I used to be able to, my parents let me ride my bicycle all over town, unsupervised, come home when the lights were on the street lights came on. Those of you who are my age, you understand that we used to be able to do that. It got to the point where Gardena was, people would refer to Gardena as a very dangerous place. And it broke my heart because I grew up in that town and I'm a product of the LA Unified School District. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was too busy just getting older. And it was a councilman that was outgoing said, hey, you know, you need to run for office and not run from Gardena. You have an obligation to do that. And I took a look into it and found out that we were $5.2 million in debt in our general fund. We built up this enormous debt from some failed investments, and we were about this close to bankruptcy. So I spent the first 6 years in office getting to really understand how the process worked. We had we have an elected mayor's position, a 4-year term there, and we had a mayor that was not from our city. And he was determined to take us down the path of bankruptcy because that was what his belief was. So I ran against him. I'm just proud to tell you that fast forward today, $5.2 million in the red and a junk rating by the bond agency. Today we have an A+ rating. We have a $12 million surplus. We've gone from 65 police officers to 99. And I would encourage you, if you ever heard anything bad about Gardena, about how dangerous it is, take that drive. Hopefully it won't take you 2 hours like it took me tonight. But take that drive down south and come visit us. It's a wonderful place. The bottom line is I'm running for this position for 2 reasons. The Sheriff's Department needs a leader who has the experience and the qualifications. 33 years in the business. I either worked in or commanded every single unit in the largest Sheriff's Department in the world. And I also, for the last 11 years of my career, managed a very unwieldy budget, which started at 1.7 and ended at $2.8 billion. And I'm proud to say never once went over budget and wasted a taxpayer dime. So when you look at the qualifications and the experience, not only in crime fighting, but administratively, I feel that I'm wholly qualified to step in from day one and get the Sheriff's Department back on track to doing what cops are supposed to do. Fight crime, take the bad guys off the street, and make your neighborhood safer.
Somebody's got to be first. I'm Ed Dunn from Canyon Country, and we're quite happy with the Sheriff's Department here, and we have family in Antelope Valley, and they're overworked up there and doing a great job. I have a question, and something that bothers me is the people that are being shot to death because the officers felt for their life or something. 4 officers against someone that's got a screwdriver or got a knife. I think about 4 or 5 years ago in Lancaster in a fast food restaurant, a lady standing in a booth, and the sheriff did a good job of evacuating the restaurant, and there's 4 of them there. She had a screwdriver, and she wouldn't put it down, so they shot her full of holes. I said I could have taken a straight chair and taken her down, and she wouldn't even be very hurt. So there must be other ways other than just shooting, especially fatally shooting. And it isn't just the sheriff. We see the LAPD doing it. We hear in Missouri it's going on. It's going on in the whole nation. I'd like to know what the Sheriff's Department would do about that if you were heading the Sheriff's Department, and also what would be done about pursuits that keep pushing the person being pursued till they run through intersections and kill innocent families. Those 2 things seem like there's room for improvement there. I'd like to know what you would do if you were heading, or if you would have the authority to do something about it. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I'll address the first question with the topic of shooting. You know, it is, I know that I'm partial because I spent 33 years in the business, and I happen to think that doing the job of law enforcement is one of the most noble professions known to mankind. 99% of the people on earth cannot or will not put on a uniform, put a gun on, and go out in the middle of the night and work in God knows where, okay? So you're put into all kinds of situations. That being said, you're absolutely right. In this business, it is a business that is at the forefront of being subjected to the critiques of society because we're, in fact, the law enforcers. It requires training. Hiring, first and foremost, the best, okay? Our hiring system in the Sheriff's Department, in my opinion, needs to be tweaked a little. You hire people that are 19 and 20 years old, that's really tough. You give them a badge and a gun, they can't even buy a beer, they can't even really buy bullets, okay? and then you put them on the street, and there's a maturing process. You know, I look at people that if I were the sheriff, the thing that I would do is I would increase the hiring age. I would make sure that people either had a college degree, they had 4 or 5 years of life experience after high school, or they served in the military. Now you're calming people down and you get them more acclimated to what's out there in the world, and you test for their temperament. You make sure they're not someone that is readily prone to getting scared or angry. You can't have people in this job. You know, there's 2 things that I was told when I was in the academy, and that you cannot be if you're a cop. And one of them was a coward. And it's a harsh word, but the fact of the matter is there are people that go out there and they're afraid. But it takes hiring the right people and training, and the same thing goes for the driving. You have to constantly stay on folks and make sure that they understand the liability and the responsibility of being in a car and having the authority to break traffic laws, but at the same time doing it in a way that is responsible.
Okay. Now let's
I'm Rick Drew. I'm from Canyon Country. Santa Clarita has a sheriff's station that was built in 1972. The detectives are now working out of a
Trailer?
No, they're working out of a furniture store.
Yes.
The city now is the 3rd largest city in the county, and way over 50 square miles, and we have 1 sheriff's station. You becoming sheriff, what could you do to increase sheriff stations or our coverage for our city to, you know?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, when I first was assigned to the patrol side, and I took a helicopter over because I wanted to get the lay of the land of what it looked like up here. And if you ever looked at it from above, you'll see that it gets choked off. You got the 14 and the 5, and that is it. And that makes for a very, very difficult situation. And with the growth in population here and the projected growth as the economy continues to hopefully improve, it is incumbent for the Sheriff of Los Angeles County to use that bully pulpit that comes with the position to bring the county and the city together and put aside their differences that they seem to sometimes have in making sure that they do the right thing, but for political differences, it doesn't get done. And that's a role that the sheriff is going to have to take to get public support and to make sure that the county supervisor and the elected officials, concerned elected officials out here, get on the same page and do what is best for the community. And the money is going to have to be put in because this area cannot survive as large of a geographic area and as populated as it is and is going to become, cannot survive with just 1 station.
Hello, my name is Rodolfo Jimenez, and we've been fighting some people that sell drugs for the last 5 years, and looks like they put in 1 end, but the rest keep doing the selling, and they stay in business all the time. They change the way they sell it, but looks like they're never going to stop. What we can do about it?
You know, your frustration is the kind of frustration that I feel, as I mentioned earlier, in my fundamental belief that everybody has a right to live in a neighborhood where they feel reasonably safe and secure. I have a reputation that everywhere I went, if I'm working and you call me, then we are going to figure out a way to make that problem go away and put in the appropriate resources. And yeah, they say, okay, it's a big county, you don't have enough resources. I don't agree with that. We have plenty of resources. And you go where the problem is and you fix it and you make sure it never returns. And I would encourage you to talk to anybody I work with over the year. That was my passion, and that is why I'm running, because I hear these kinds of stories like what you're offering up, and it's very frustrating for me to hear that you are a hardworking member of this community, just trying to make a living, trying to live a good life, trying to provide for your family, and yet you have to suffer the indignities of having people who create fear and ruin your neighborhood, and that should not be tolerated. And again, that is the job of law enforcement, to make that environment safer for you. And I can assure you that as sheriff, that would happen.
Thank you.
Hello, Judy Jensen, Canyon Country. off the wall, in your opinion, since Santa Clarita is growing so fast and it's going to be growing, and we have unincorporated areas that are not in the city, but the sheriffs respond to them. They say the time is slower than if you are in the city. But do you think it's time maybe the city should look into their own police department?
That was something that I think every political body would have to give great consideration to, that I wouldn't be able to make a recommendation. I can just tell you that where I'm at in the city of Gardena, we have a great police department. I would also tell you that while I would never consider ever changing them, that if we were to contract with the Sheriff's Department, we could probably do it for 30% less. And so that there's a significant cost savings that could then be put into other services. But if that's what a community demands, then that's something that should be brought forth before a council. I happen to think the Sheriff's Department is one of the greatest agencies in this business, but it's incumbent upon each and every member of our department to be able to communicate that with people like yourself, with members of the community, to make sure that you feel that same way too. And if you don't, then we have to make sure that we fix those feelings. And if at that point an elected body still feels that they should go outside and invest the money in the infrastructure and the equipment and the personnel costs ongoing, then that's certainly their prerogative, and I'm not opposed to that either.
What is the population of Gardena?
60,000.
60,000,
Yes.
And you have your own police department?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Enzo Marino. I'm with Cougar News at COC. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Proposition 47, where you stand on it and why.
Is that the one where they want to let
Criminal
want to make a bunch of felonies misdemeanors?
decriminalization of.
I'm not for that. Okay, if the laws are on the books, and there seems to be this movement across the country to decriminalize a lot of acts that have been on the books as criminal acts. And everybody knows what a criminal act is. When you bother someone else, when you steal their property, when you commit a crime against that person's person, okay, then the laws in this land dictate or demand that you pay your price to society. And I'm not, this state has added, I think it's upwards of 5 million people since they built another prison. And I realize that we're not going to lock everybody up and get our way out of that. But the fact of the matter is, when you add 5 million people to a state over the course of however many years, you can't really honestly expect that all of them were good. And so we added all these people, but we did not build any new facilities. That resulted in AB 109. They pushed them all out because the federal government said that the state was overcrowded. They're in the local levels, and take a look around you. Crime is on the rise in virtually every community across this county, and that really has to be addressed.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Rick Eaton from Canyon Country. As someone who is in management in the Sheriff's Department, I'm wondering what you think are still residual issues left over from the previous administration, and how do you plan to address them?
First and foremost, I think that the residual issues are probably not as great as the media would like some to believe. I think the most important thing is I made a conscious decision to run for sheriff. It was something that really wasn't something I considered too strongly initially, but over time, I believe that the former sheriff had done a really remarkably good job of bringing this organization into the 21st century, making sure that we were doing things the way things should be done according to societal standards. But then at some point, I felt personally that he had sort of lost track or focus of what our mission was, and became more engaged in extracurricular travels and such. And so I believe that if I step in from day one, everybody there knows who I am already. I already know who they are. There's a lot of folks right now that are milking the system in the upper ranks, and they know who they are. And what we need to do is bring in a management team that's experienced, that's qualified, and that has a track record of being a strong leader. They know how to deliver a message. They know how to spell out the mission. and they're not afraid to hold people accountable to do the job. You put those things in place, and you'll get right back on track. In my opinion, I have no doubt we can get right back on track in no time.
Mr. Tanaka, I appreciate where you stand on the Second Amendment, as most of the people know. My name is Bob Brode, B-R-O-D-E, and I am a Canyon Country resident, but I also have an insight into some of the problems you mentioned, problems in the jails, specifically with the 3000 Club and earlier with the Vikings. And I'd like to know what your position is exactly relative to cleaning up the mess that's been left behind by your predecessor or the person you would like to proceed. I'm not asking you to comment on any specifics, but I know very intimately a number of the problems and some of the people. And some of those people shouldn't have been allowed to do what they did. I'd like you to address that, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. You know, in this business, I would always tell the deputies, it's not like any other business. The standards that are set by society are the highest standards you can expect in any profession. You know, if you're in Hollywood and you're a movie star and you get on the front page of a newspaper or you make the top of the hour because you have some kind of a drug-infused incident and then people want to disown you, and you make another movie and suddenly you're a hero. Same thing goes in sports. You know, sports players oftentimes get themselves in a lot of trouble. They hit a home run and they're a hero again. I would tell the deputies this all the time. In this business, there is no margin for error, and if you cross the line, it's unacceptable, and you lose your job. It's as simple as that. And I'm not proud of this particular fact, but during the time period when I was the undersheriff and I was in charge of discipline, I fired more people in 1 year for misconduct than the department had done on average for about 2 or 3 year period. When you talk about tattoos, which is, I know what you're making the reference to it, and you're talking about things that occurred in the 80s when I was working in patrol, the mentality was not the same as what I've seen as I've gone through the organization into the management ranks. It wasn't about separating yourself so that you could then have your own creed and you can write things down like it's okay to cross the line and then come back in order to get the job done. That is unacceptable. And when I saw some of the groups that were forming in this day and age with the mentality and the mindset that they had to be different and apart from the mission of law enforcement, that is completely unacceptable, and I do not tolerate that.
I agree with you, sir. I was a cop for 33 years, so I appreciate what you're saying. But I was looking more specifically that should you be elected sheriff, what's going to happen at the management level that allowed that to occur?
I don't want to be critical of the people I work with, but I will tell you that a lot of folks that were promoted to high positions were simply promoted because it was part of the proverbial good old boys club. I worked with you 30 years ago. You're in your last few years. We're going to bump you up. Sheriff and I had frequent arguments about this. Sir, this person is not qualified. He's just looking for an easy ride out, a bump up in salary. And he and I, that was a source of many disagreements in how we promote. I, on the other hand, I have this belief, and everybody knows, and I had that reputation. If you work hard. You give the county an honest day's work for an 8 hours. I used to always say 8 hours work for 8 hours pay, and you prove that you've used that experience to become a better person, a better cop, a better person with the community, and when you get to the leadership positions, you've also shown not only do you have the experience and the knowledge, but that you're not afraid to be the kind of leader that this business needs. This business needs tough leaders who are not afraid to discipline people and fire people. It's an unfortunate fact of this business, but like yourself, anybody in this business knows you cannot have any tolerance when it comes to misconduct, or you lose the trust of the public.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wendy Albright, Valencia. I watch a lot of news, and there seems to be an extreme bias against you in the media. And I'd like to ask you if you'd like to address that and give us your opinion of what you think.
Well, you know, I've heard this phrase, you know, that the media is the third arm of government. You have the executive branch, legislative branch, and then you have the spin branch. And I understand. I was actually interviewed yesterday by a veteran reporter, former Washington correspondent, who's been now reporting here in the L.A. area on one of the network news for the past 17 years. And he specifically asked me that question. He says, you know, I know that you're probably gun-shy with the media, but the reason I want to talk to you is I really want to know who you are, because every time I open up the LA Times, I get a story that just, it doesn't fit from everything else that I've heard about you. And so he came out to do an interview, and like he said, his words, I know for a fact that the media, when they set their sights to something, will attempt to direct public opinion in the manner in which they choose. And I said, wow, I would love for you to tell that story to the rest of the public, because most people just go along with, oh, wow, did you read what I read? And yet he came in, he goes, I can't believe it. He goes, I read everything, so I came here not knowing what to expect. But I knew there had to be more. And he says, the first thing I did was I walked into City Hall before you got here, found out this is your third term as mayor. They told me how the city's been turned around and this and that. And he said, so he goes, I'm hoping you're going to like my story. And I said, listen, we can't control what the media says or does. And so I've learned in politics and in life, you can't worry about what you can't control. You can only just do what you can do. And in this particular case, leave it up to the voters to decide on November 4th.
I just wanted to say that, yes, I understand the world is not fair, but I think you've been treated very poorly. And I think you've done an amazing job over all of the years that you've served, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, the chair is empty. Doesn't anybody have any more questions? Cougar News, don't you have any more questions? Oh, you got to have more than one. Okay, there you go. You're next.
Mr. Tanaka, in an interview with ABC's David Ono, referring to the, excuse me, sir, the Operation Pandora's Box, you said that you were out of the loop, but former Sheriff Lee Baca said that, and I'm quoting him now, was he said, excuse me, he said, and I'm quoting him, he said, absolutely not. Mr. Tanaka was fully in the loop, in fact, more in the loop than even me. I just want to ask, how do you respond to that?
How would you like me to respond to it, short of calling him a liar? Okay, let's leave it at that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mike Cruz from Canyon Country. I was wondering if you would support or oppose a civilian oversight commission over the Sheriff's Department similar to what they have for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Sir, I appreciate that question, and that's a very important question, because the most important thing that a law enforcement agency must have is public trust. Without it, it doesn't work. It does not work. The community does not work. The law enforcement relationship with the members of the community don't work. I support anything, any body, any function, whatever it is that people come up with that will provide the people with that trust. Now, in this particular case, LA County created they had a Colts Commission for 20-something years. They had an Office of Independent Review, and yet here we are to this day. And the bottom line is, most of that was just in name only. It looked good. It sounded good. And the sheriff used to say that, hey, these guys got my back, but once they clean me up, we're all good. The fact of the matter is, you have to have a genuine oversight body that the person in charge is willing to work with and to really make an effort to make sure that things are being done right at all times, and a regular mechanism to report back to the community on what's being discussed, not under the cloak of secrecy. These are the issues that we're facing, and telling the public these are the way we're addressing it. Now, as far as an oversight body, the county just appointed an inspector general and a team of attorneys to serve in that role. I support that. If you bring in an oversight body and you bring in too many, and I saw that at the end of my last few years when we had the Colts guy and we had the Office of Independent Review, they couldn't help it. They were trying to compete against each other. So instead of trying to do the right thing and provide true oversight, they were more in competition to see who was going to be able to keep their contract serving in that role. So do I support it? Yes. But for right now, I support the mechanism that the county is just initiated, and that's the Inspector General, and he is supposed to provide the kind of oversight that you're referring to.
Okay. Thank you.
No more? No more? Well, Mr. Tanaka, I'm not even going to turn the timer on. You just, you have the floor.
I just want to thank everyone again for the opportunity to come before you. I've come up to this community, like I said, probably about 15 times in the last 6 to 8 months. I enjoy coming up here. My wife and I, my wife is here, and we know a lot of folks up here. But I also, like I said, from a professional standpoint, this is truly the linchpin of the future of LA County's community safety. If we can make sure that Santa Clarita grows in the way that it's going to grow and provide the right community safety, then we have a much better chance of ensuring safer communities all around us. If we lose this valley, this Santa Clarita Valley, it's going to be a real rough county to live in all 4,000 square miles. And that's what my belief is, and that is what my commitment to you is that if elected sheriff, I can assure you that I will be spending a lot of time up here listening to your concerns, working with this community to make sure that Santa Clarita remains one of the safest communities in America.